people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that unbeaten up-and-comer of Niagara Falls, Makia Kreps, will be returning to action at least one more time before this year is out. This will turn out to be the busiest year in her young professional career, sporting a professional record of just 4 wins, no losses and no draws with 2 knockouts. She's coming off a points decision win over Carmarie Matos Vargas. We talked about that fight in the build-up. We talked about it here on the channel. What was a battle of the unbeatens, then unbeaten Carmarie, who was decisioned by Makia Kreps in a 6-rounder.
It was billed as a 6-rounder in the bantamweight division. Bantamweight, that's 118 pounds. That's where
Ebony Bridges holds the IBF title. Yuli Hangaluna of Mexico, she's got the WBC. Dina Thorsland of Denmark, she's got the WBO. Jamie Mitchell, she's got the WBA. 2 of the 4 active reigning world champions are scheduled to see action very soon. Jamie Mitchell set to take on unbeaten Nina Hughes, and Ebony Bridges, she's set to take on her countrywoman and mandatory challenger, Shotgun Shannon O'Connell. This is all in the women's bantamweight division. Bantamweight, a densely populated division, a talent-rich division, a talent-rich weight class with
4 separate reigning world champions, 4 separate world titleists.
There's no doubts that Makia Kreps and her team, they made the decision for Makia to move down in weight because right now the bantamweight division, it is buzzing. It's got more of a profile, at least right now, than the super bantamweight division.
At least right now it does. I anticipate that in the next year, 2 years, the super bantamweight division and the featherweight divisions, those 2 divisions will have more of a profile. Those divisions will start to heat up. But for now, bantamweight is buzzing.
I've no doubts. That's why Makia Kreps and her team made the decision that she should campaign there in a talent-rich, densely populated weight class that offers her a lot of opportunities.
Really anywhere between 118 and 126, though all the same, 118 is buzzing.
Makia Kreps debuted as a professional in late 2020 in October. Fortunately for her, she only saw action once that year, only saw action once the following year in 2021 in November. This year, she's been a little bit more active. She fought once in May, once in October, and she's set to return to action again this month, late this month, on the 22nd against veteran journeywoman India Smith. You might be familiar with that name. That's the same India Smith that dropped a decision to unbeaten up-and-comer of Russia, Fatima Dudieva. She's gotten back to action since then. She has since rebounded off that loss to Fatima, and she's currently on a 3-fight winning streak.
This is a manageable situation for Makia Kreps, an experience fight.
To help her get more experience and more rounds in the bank, India Smith, a come-forward, aggressive scrapper, brawler.
Kind of fighter that wants to fluster their opponent with activity and aggression. She will afford Makia Kreps many countering opportunities the night of the fight.
She can be a formidable little fighter for someone in the early stages of their career. You know, she gave Fatima Dudieva a lot of problems. The otherwise spiteful, mean-spirited Fatima Dudieva, she was a bit more reserved opposite the ring India Smith. I've no doubts Makia Kreps,
she can handle India Smith. At minimum, she can win a points decision. At most, she can stop her. Makia's got power. Makia's got pop.
Yeah, she's not just some finesse fighting kind of fighter, some classy boxer. She's got spite of her own. She can be mean-spirited when she wants to be. This is a good way for Makia Kreps to cap off the year, getting some more experience, more rounds in the bank, making up for lost time, all the rounds she didn't get the bank last year.
Yeah, because she only fought once last year. She's making up for lost time this year.
This will be her 3rd fight this year. Look for this later on this month on the 22nd when Makia Kreps returns to action against India Smith. Men's lightweight news. Isaac Cruz's coach is confident they would beat Vasyl Lomachenko. They would knock him out.
I mean, all right, so go over there and do the fight. What are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for? You waiting for Vasyl Lomachenko to come to you? What, you think you're the A side? You want to do the fight? You want to do the fight? How do you do the fight?
Go over there and do the fight. What are you waiting for?
That's how you do the fight. Cruz Sr., believes his son would beat Lomachenko in the same manner as Orlando Salido, who handed Lomachenko his first career defeat. It would be an identical copy of the fight with Sidi Salido did to Lomachenko, Cruz Sr. said to Izquierdazo. If Sidi Salido beat him at that age, and by utilizing his experience, then I really have no doubt that we would beat Lomachenko.
Utilizing his experience, he said. You mean a proliferation of dick punches the referee happened not to see?
I mean, at least one issue I have with this evaluation is that Vasyl Lomachenko was a far less experienced professional all those years ago when he fought Orlando Salido. He was less experienced then than he is now. He only had one professional fight going into the Salido fight.
Safe to say he's more experienced now, and he has picked up a trick or two since then, wouldn't you say?
I have no doubt at all that my son would beat Lomachenko, and what I could confirm is that a decision would not be reached, Cruz Sr. insisted. We would work to press him in the same manner as Salido. Cruz would not give him a break. That hurts Lomachenko. Lomachenko boxes very nicely, but he is not used to being overwhelmed so much. Pitbull keeps coming over and over.
Well, I hardly expect the man's own father and trainer to say that Lomachenko would beat the shit out of my son.
Truth, I hardly expect any professional fighter to write themselves off like that.
I hardly expect any trainer to write off their fighters' chances. I hardly expect honesty in a situation like this.
Same way I hardly expect objectivity from the spectators in what is this spectator sport. In this sport, objectivity is very hard to come by. Ultimately, it's a fight that you're after. If you're a fight fan, it's a fight that you want. And I'm not against Isaac Cruz fighting Vasyl Lomachenko, quite the opposite. I would like to see that fight. I would like to find out if Isaac Cruz can deliver on his father's word. I'd like to see it. Here's the problem. It don't happen unless you do what you gotta do, because in case you don't notice, you ain't the A-side to Vasyl Lomachenko for losing to Gervonta Davis.
Me, you're not. If you want a Vasyl Lomachenko fight, he's the A-side to you, and you've got to go to him.
What do you think? He's gonna put the undisputed title fight with Devin Haney on hold to fight you for what?
What?
For what dollar amount?
One of the banes of being a boxing fan is that many other boxing fans have the critical thinking skills of a toddler.
In the business sense of a paperweight. It's simple, really. If Isaac Cruz, or his father, if he likes his fighter's chances that much, then he would, in effect, pursue a Vasyl Lomachenko fight to no end based on how confident he is of the victory. He'd pursue that fight and do whatever he has to do to get Vasyl Lomachenko in the ring, because that would be the most high-profile victory of his son's career. That's if he really likes his chances. That's if he means business. But what I see is a team that's quite comfortable barking from behind the fence.
They don't mean business. They're not serious. They're not pursuing a Vasyl Lomachenko fight.
That's not what they're doing, and that's not what they're going to do. What they're going to do is fight more guys like Yuriorkis Gamboa whilst name-dropping the relevant fighters at the weight. The relevant fighters in the division. They're going to keep barking from behind that fence.
You think I wouldn't like to see Cruz versus Lomachenko, or Cruz versus Haney, Cruz versus Stevenson, Cruz versus Lopez? I'd like to see all of those fights. I'm a fight fan.
But I'm just being honest. When it comes to leaving the island, Pitbull Cruz, Isaac Pitbull Cruz. This Pitbull is more of a poodle.
Didn't Oscar De La Hoya make you a 7-figure offer to box Ryan Garcia? Why didn't that happen?
Why didn't that materialize? And now you want us to believe that where you didn't fight Ryan Garcia, you're going to fight Vasyl Lomachenko? No. You're not going to fight him.
Nah.
You're going to bring him up in interviews. You're going to talk about him whilst fighting absolutely no one.
Yeah, I've read this book before.
In men's lightweight and super lightweight news, Oscar De La Hoya has confirmed that Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia is agreed, but the broadcaster needs to be resolved. The promoters have done their job. We've come to terms on everything. Now it's up to the networks. Showtime, DAZN, for the fans. Make it happen. And I've no doubts that Showtime...
They want first dibs on the U.S. rights because they're a U.S.-based premium cable network. They're not a global streaming app.
They don't cater to an audience abroad or audiences abroad, foreign markets. They're focused on a U.S.-based audience because they're a U.S.-based network. The problem there is the core support for this fight and the core interest. It's right here in the US of A. It's a big fight here, more than it is elsewhere in the world. That's not saying it doesn't have some foreign interest, but the bulk of it really is right here in the US of A.
So given Gervonta Davis's constant claims that he's no longer with Mayweather Promotions, that he's a free agent, that's what he's been saying.
If that were true, we wouldn't still be hearing about Showtime being involved in all of this. He'd be able to just let Ryan Garcia and Golden Boy Promotions foot the bill for the fight on the DAZN platform. If he really were a free agent and he had that kind of autonomy, he doesn't. Thus, I've never had any stock in his claims that he would leave Mayweather Promotions.
That kid's not going anywhere.
The idea that Showtime, a premium cable network who means to bill the fight as a domestic box office fight, a domestic pay-per-view, at a time when piracy is at an all-time high. You know, the idea that Showtime is the ideal...
But somehow Showtime is a more ideal distributor for this fight than, say, DAZN. Well,
that's an illusion, because Showtime's metrics for their boxing content, it's down. All the way around, all across the board, whether you're talking about the PBC stuff or the novelty fight stuff, the Jake Paul stuff. I think Jake Paul himself speculated that his recent pay-per-view with Anderson Silva would only do about 200,000 or 300,000 buys at the box office. Nobody at Showtime is bringing in robust numbers and robust metrics, not on regular Showtime and not at the box office. So what exactly makes Showtime the ideal platform for this fight? If anything, Showtime's continued involvement in the career of Gervonta Davis has so isolated him from the biggest fights that he can have.
At a time where a potential phase-out by way of Showtime's parent company, Paramount, at a time when a potential phase-out is looming.
What makes Showtime a more ideal platform for this fight than DAZN? What exactly?
It's not their metrics this calendar year, that's for goddamn sure. They got outperformed by everybody. They got outperformed by DAZN. They got outperformed by ESPN.
I challenge the idea that somehow Showtime is a more ideal platform for this fight than DAZN, because DAZN caters to not just an American audience, but a global one, several different markets around the world. And they're just as capable of bankrolling this fight and satisfying the financial demands of the fighters. They're just as capable of doing that as Showtime, if not more so.
They are. Realistically, though, Gervonta Davis ain't crossing over to DAZN.
We're being realistic, so the only way I can see this fight get done is if DAZN concedes the American broadcast rights for the fight to Showtime, so Showtime can air it here as a box office fight, and DAZN gets the rights to the fight everywhere else in the world.
It's probably the only way the fight gets done. There's got to be a bit of gimme from both sides, from the DAZN side and the Showtime side.
This is a major obstacle because the broadcast rights for the fight, who's going to distribute it, well, that's just as important as satisfying the fighter's financial demands.
I told you guys from the very beginning that this would be an issue.
I feel like the people at DAZN might offer more leniency in the situation, might be more willing to work something out than the people over there at Showtime, but we'll see what develops. I'm surprised that talks have gotten this far. Finally, ahead of this weekend's big mega match in Abu Dhabi, Dimitri Bivol has made it clear in multiple interviews this week that his main aim for 2023 is the undisputed WBA, WBC, IBF, and WBO light heavyweight world title fight versus Artur Beterbiev. And this is his priority over a potential Canelo Alvarez rematch. It's hard to imagine that Dimitri can have that fight with any involvement from Matchroom and DAZN. It feels like the only way he can get Artur, rather, the winner of Artur Beterbiev versus Anthony Yarde in the ring, set to go down early next year, the only way that happens is if he crosses over to the Top Rank and ESPN side of things. Otherwise, it's hard to imagine that Bob is going to play ball. It's hard to imagine that Dimitri is going to have access to that fighter, whoever that fighter ends up being.
Artur or Anthony, if he beats Artur and takes his titles.
Concurrently, Eddie Hearn has revealed that he's had a few conversations with Canelo Alvarez's trainer and manager, Eddie Reynoso, and they're waiting until after Dimitri Bivol versus Gilberto Ramirez on November 5th to start talks for Canelo's next fight, which is likely for May 2023.
My honest opinion, I think Canelo Alvarez should sit out until September, recuperate, take some time off.
Moreover, as a boxing fan, as a consumer, I'm more interested in seeing Dimitri Bivol versus the winner of Beterbiev versus Yard than seeing a Bivol versus Canelo Alvarez rematch. Being completely honest with you, I don't know how much Canelo Alvarez can change in his approach. To find the victory in a rematch, find the victory in a second fight where he could not the first time out, the first time with Dimitri. I feel like at light heavyweight, Canelo is simply biting off more than he can chew. And he's lucky that it's just a decision that he lost.
It could have been worse.
Because of all of his accomplishments and his reputation, people tend to forget that this is a guy who used to campaign as low as welterweight. People forget that Canelo Alvarez, he's not a real light heavyweight. He's not a true light heavyweight. He doesn't have the physically imposing size he would need to make it as a light heavyweight against the best light heavyweights in the world. It's a wonder he even won a title there from an old Sergey Kovalev, but still, that old Sergey Kovalev that he fought is a better fighter than most of what you'll find in David Benavidez's resume, Jermall Charlo's, and Demetrius Andrade's resumes as well. Better still, Canelo's not a light heavyweight, and I don't know how much he can change about his approach to find the victory against Dimitri in a rematch that he couldn't find the first time out. I'm actually more interested as a consumer and a boxing fan in seeing Dimitri pursue the Beterbiev fight.
Oh, granted that Dimitri Bivol might have only recently stepped into the spotlight, stepped into the forefront of the boxing world, but I've been waiting for that Artur Beterbiev fight for years now.
Simple, really. What do you want to see more? A rematch between Canelo and Dimitri, or a showdown between Dimitri and Artur? And the answer to that question, at least for me, is fairly simple. I'd rather see Bivol versus Beterbiev. That's what I want to see. That's what I've been waiting for.
I've already seen Canelo versus Bivol, and I understand that there might be some demand in some circles, small ones, for Canelo to run it back with that guy, see if he can't avenge the loss, but I don't think that takes precedence over the undisputed light heavyweight championship of the world.
Moreover, Dimitri Bivol pursuing Artur, in that fight taking precedence and priority over a rematch with Canelo, that doesn't take the rematch with Canelo off the table, not necessarily. If Dimitri Bivol beats Artur and becomes his division's undisputed champion, that would be another shot, another opportunity for Canelo Alvarez to become an undisputed champion by pursuing that rematch afterwards.
For now, he can defend his own undisputed crown at 168 pounds against one of those guys in the queue, one of
his mandatory challengers. It's my understanding that Canelo Alvarez has already had surgery on his injured hand and the bandages have been removed.
I still think this guy should come back in September, but if he comes back in May...
You know what you do? You offer Jermall Charlo to fight. Except you tell that guy to meet you on your terms because you're the cash cow of boxing. He's just some fucking nobody, some guy with his hand out. You tell that guy the fight happens on the zone or the fight don't happen.
Simple as.
Maybe you offer that guy to fight. Maybe you settle up with Demetrius Andrade. He's not doing anything right now and he's not with anybody. Those fights with Demetrius and Jermall.
They're still interesting fights, and they are unbeaten fighters after all, but those are more winnable fights than a rematch with Dimitri Bivol. I told you guys ahead of time, out of all the options on the table for Canelo Alvarez, the biggest banana skin there is Dimitri Bivol.
We've already seen how that played out. A fight with Jermall and a fight with Demetrius, well, those are still interesting fights that are also more winnable fights than a rematch with Dimitri.
So keep busy with one of those guys.